It's the best and worst of last gen, reminiscing about the last generation of consoles as we move into the new one. Best, the birth and evolution of the DLC or downloadable content. One of the biggest and newest topics of discussion this last console generation was the DLC, the availability for a game developer to add on additional content to a game that has already been released to a public at a future date. Now, a lot of gamers at first saw this as totally awesome. Look, I can get additional content added onto my gameplay experience later on, and it's totally optional. I don't have to get it if I don't want. And in a lot of cases, game developers really took this opportunity to utilize the DLC for very good gain. I mean, take a look at some of the best ones we had. Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare, a totally parallel what-if scenario where zombies invade the Red Dead Redemption universe. Ended up being one of the best DLCs of the entire generation. How about the BioShock Infinite Buried at Sea DLC? Another what-if scenario where what if the main characters of BioShock Infinite actually existed in the town of Rapture? What happened in Rapture before the whole outbreak of splicers and where all chaos and all hell ran loose? It's a really interesting thing. Or maybe even Assassin's Creed 3, The Tyranny of King Washington, where you have another what-if scenario where George Washington was not a benevolent person, but instead became a tyrant in America, and the efforts of Connor to try to thwart his tyranny. So, in these particular cases, and in a lot of other cases with things like entertaining map packs and other forms of additional content, the DLC really shined on the last generation of consoles, primarily due to the fact that the online experience was improved so much that you were able to download these DLCs at a future date. However, over time, game developers and publishers found a way to flip that model completely on its head. Worst, bad utilization of DLCs to screw over the consumer. One of the major points of contention, and actually one of the biggest controversies of the last generation of gaming consoles, was the DLC that didn't seem to be in the spirit of the gamer's side of things. For example, there were some games in the past few years where the game just comes to an abrupt end, and then you find out, oh, in 2 months there'll be a DLC where you can actually play the end of the game. And it's like, now wait a minute, I already gave you my $60 for this game. Why would I need to give you more money to see the true ending of the game? In addition to that, massive controversy regarding on-disc DLC, and actually Capcom was the biggest perpetrator of this. An entire fighting game with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, where there were so many characters included on your game disc when you bought it, but needed to be unlocked through additional purchases at a future date. They even did the same thing with a role-playing game, Dragon's Dogma, which had hundreds of extra missions tacked onto the disc that you had to actually unlock at a later date with more money. And so gamers were up in arms about this. Wait a minute, if you want us to pay extra for DLC, that's fine, but it has to be something that wasn't scaled back from the original game. Huge controversy with stuff like Javik in Mass Effect 3, where at one point gamers believed that this character actually was part of the game and was ripped out of it so that he could be sold at a DLC later. Of course, later on that was debunked. But that whole notion of publishers now abusing the gamer and using DLCs to make more money rather than to actually add on entertainment and experiences for the gamer. So DLCs, a huge double-edged sword in the last generation of consoles, and we're going to see now in the new gen, how exactly is this going to pan out. Next on our countdown, some of you might not even remember this being an issue, but it is quite funny and it is something worth discussion, so check it out.